Top 10 Forests You Must Explore. There are forests on Earth that don't look like ordinary forests. Some are filled with trees so enormous that people look tiny beside them. Others disappear into thick mist. Some are covered in moss, surrounded by waterfalls, or filled with trees that have stood there for thousands of years. And then there are forests that look as if they were designed for a fantasy movie. Today, we're exploring 10 of the most incredible forests on Earth. And some of them are so unusual that you'll probably have a hard time believing they're real. Let's begin. Number 10. Black Forest, Germany. In southwestern Germany lies a vast region of dense woodland, rolling hills, and small villages. The Black Forest. Its name comes from the thick evergreen trees that once made parts of the forest appear almost completely dark from a distance. But step inside and the landscape becomes much more inviting. Narrow trails wind through tall trees. Small streams flow between moss-covered rocks. In autumn, the forest turns golden and orange. And during winter, snow transforms the landscape into something that looks like a fairy tale. The Black Forest is also deeply connected to German folklore. Many of the stories that inspired classic European fairy tales feature mysterious forests remarkably similar to this landscape. And when fog settles between the trees, it's easy to understand why. Number 9. Redwood Forests, California. Imagine standing next to a tree so enormous that you have to look almost straight up to see its top. That is the experience of walking through California's redwood forests. Some of these trees are among the tallest living organisms on Earth. Their trunks can reach enormous widths, while the surrounding forest creates a cathedral-like atmosphere. Sunlight filters through the canopy high above. Mist moves between the trees. And tiny hikers walking along the forest floor provide a sense of just how massive these giants really are. The trees have survived fires, storms, and centuries of changing climate. Walking among them feels less like visiting a forest, and more like entering another era of Earth's history. Number 8. Plitvice Forests, Croatia. We've already seen the incredible waterfalls of Plitvice, but the surrounding forest deserves just as much attention. Dense woodland surrounds a network of turquoise lakes and cascading waterfalls. Wooden paths lead through the trees and across clear water. Moss-covered rocks disappear beneath the vegetation. And every few minutes the forest opens to reveal another lake or waterfall. The combination is what makes Plitvice so special. It's not simply a forest, it's an entire ecosystem where trees, water, cliffs, and waterfalls all blend together. Number 7. Bamboo Forest, Japan. Few forests look as unusual as Arashiyama's famous bamboo grove in Japan. Instead of traditional tree trunks, enormous bamboo stalks rise vertically into the sky. The narrow pathways create long corridors through the forest. As the wind moves through the bamboo, the stalks gently sway and create a distinctive natural sound. The atmosphere changes dramatically depending on the time of day. Early in the morning, the paths can be quiet and peaceful. Soft light passes between the bamboo and creates long shadows across the ground. It feels completely different from a conventional forest. And that's exactly what makes it so memorable. Number 6. Rainforest, USA. On Washington State's Olympic Peninsula lies one of the most atmospheric temperate rainforests in North America, the Hoh Rainforest. The forest receives enormous amounts of rainfall throughout the year. As a result, almost everything appears covered in green. Trees are wrapped in moss. Ferns cover the forest floor. Small streams flow between giant trunks. Mist frequently hangs beneath the canopy. The result is an environment that feels almost untouched. Walking through the Hoh Rainforest can feel like entering a living green tunnel. The further you go, the more difficult it becomes to see where the forest ends. Number 5. Monteverde Cloud Forest, Costa Rica. High in the mountains of Costa Rica lies a forest that is almost permanently surrounded by clouds, Monteverde. Instead of simply seeing trees stretching toward the horizon, visitors often walk through a world of mist. Moisture collects on leaves, branches, and moss. Ferns grow everywhere. Vines climb enormous trees, and the clouds move directly through the forest. This creates a constantly changing atmosphere. One moment the forest can be bright and green. Minutes later, mist can completely transform the landscape. The cloud forest is also home to an extraordinary variety of wildlife. And because everything is covered in moisture, the entire environment seems to glow with life. Number 4. Amazon rainforest, South America. No list of incredible forests would be complete without the Amazon. The Amazon rainforest is enormous. It stretches across several countries and contains one of the greatest concentrations of biodiversity on Earth. From above, the forest appears almost endless, a giant green carpet covering the landscape. But descend beneath the canopy, and an entirely different world appears. Rivers cut through the forest. Trees tower above the ground. Vines hang from branches. Birds, insects, monkeys, reptiles, and countless other species live within the ecosystem. The scale is difficult to comprehend. In some areas, the forest stretches so far that there is no obvious sign of human civilization. It is one of the greatest natural landscapes on our planet. Number 3. Daintree Rainforest, Australia. On the northeastern coast of Australia lies a rainforest unlike almost anywhere else. The Daintree. This ancient ecosystem contains plants and landscapes that have existed for millions of years. But what makes the Daintree especially spectacular is its location. The rainforest reaches almost directly toward the tropical coastline. You can have dense green forest on one side, and the turquoise waters of the Coral Sea on the other. Streams, waterfalls, giant trees, and thick vegetation create a landscape that feels prehistoric. And some plants found here are extremely ancient. Walking through the Daintree can feel like stepping into Earth's distant past. Number 2. Jiuzhaigou Forests, China. Jiuzhaigou is famous for its incredible turquoise lakes, but surrounding those lakes is an equally spectacular forest. In autumn, the trees transform into shades of yellow, orange, and red. Their colors are reflected perfectly in the clear mountain lakes below. Snow-covered peaks rise behind the forest. Waterfalls cut through the landscape, and mist often settles between the mountains. The result is almost impossible to describe. Every element seems perfectly positioned. Colorful trees, blue water, white mountains, and deep green forests. It looks more like a painting than a real landscape. Number 1. Yakushima, Japan. And finally, one of the most mysterious forests on Earth, Yakushima. This Japanese island is covered with ancient forests filled with enormous cedar trees. Some of these trees are thousands of years old. Moss covers rocks and tree trunks. Roots twist across the forest floor. Streams run through narrow valleys, and mist frequently moves between the trees. The combination creates an almost otherworldly atmosphere. It's easy to imagine why landscapes like this have inspired fantasy stories and animated films. The forest feels ancient, quiet, and completely separated from the modern world. And that's why Yakushima takes our number 1 spot. Forests cover huge parts of our planet, but these places show just how different a forest can be. From gigantic redwoods and tropical rainforests to misty cloud forests and ancient Japanese cedar trees, every forest tells a different story. And perhaps the most amazing thing is that all of them are completely real. Which forest would you want to explore? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe for more incredible places around the world. See you in the next adventure.